All right, well, it's time to start. Good morning. Here we are. It's time to begin. I'm Matt Nichols, lead pastor of this crazy church you're in. Thank you so much for coming today, and we're gonna have a good time. I'm excited. Don't always get to be the one to welcome you. Oh, okay, I'll make sure that's on too. Won't always get to welcome you guys, but I do get to welcome you today. And so we have a lot of great things coming up for us. First of all, I want to make sure you understand where the bathrooms are located. If you need to use the restroom, we're out the back door and off to the side. Make sure you all know where the restrooms are. And it's great because you don't have to worry about it if it's men's or women's. It's both. So you just, if the door's shut, don't go in there. If the door is open, you can go in, and it's pretty safe. In our children's ministry, we have great environments for our kids, birth through middle school age, and we even allow our middle school and high school age to jump in and help as volunteers. And believe me, you guys, high school, you're rock stars to kids. So they're just like, just being in their presence is exciting enough for the kids. You don't have to do anything, just sit there and sip some coffee, and the kids are just like, wow, tell me what it's like to be able to like sleep in late and get up and whatever. So, make sure that you check that out. Our kids ministry is phenomenal. We've got great volunteers who make it the best part of every kid's week. And I'm very proud of these guys, and we're very proud of what we have to offer kids here at the church. So we have a great kids ministry for all of you. And this morning, if you wanted to give, you can give at our give station located out in the lobby, or you can give through our website. We have a PayPal located on the church website, silvercreek.church, and you can give through that if you feel so compelled to give. I know folks ask me sometimes, hey, how do we give? Because they notice that we don't pass a collection plate during our service, and that's how we do that. We don't do it with the traditional collection plate that is passed. Now this morning you're going to have me speak your message to you. So if you came hoping for someone else, I apologize. And if you came hoping for me, well then good news, I'm here. So we're speaking today's message to you, and then after I get finished with that, we're going to take a 3-minute break. 3 minutes. You can go potty, say hello to somebody really quick, then come back in, and we're going to jump into our music time with Alexis, leading us into a special worship time, which I know you're all going to enjoy that. So that's how it's all going to go down. Now it's time to start the message. So we're on Labor Day weekend 2020. I don't know about you, but I don't think we're going to forget the year 2022 quick. I think it's going to be one of those years we're going to tell our kids about. And we'll be telling about it for years to come. You know, that was the year the world shut down for a period of time, the entire world. And it's a lot of unprecedented things that have happened. But Labor Day, which is what we're on now, you know, it's a day to celebrate and have some fun. It's the weekend that people look forward to, like, hey, it's the mark of fall, autumn time is coming. And for those of you fall, autumn lovers like I am, you get a little bit excited because the chilly mornings start coming back, and the leaves start stirring colors, and it means sitting by the campfires and, you know, doing all that fun stuff with a family. And also means we're getting ready for Christmas time, which is coming. Marks that summer's over and Christmas is coming. For those of you fashionistas, that means you can no longer wear white, apparently. Although I still will sometimes, so watch that and see. But no, you're allowed today. You're okay today. But apparently after this, it's the mark, you know. But Labor Day, the whole idea of it, in 1894, I'm going to tell you about where this comes from. In 1894, there was a labor union machinist and a labor union carpenter who got their heads together and said, you know what, we need to have a day to honor those of us who work our butts off, I'm paraphrasing, work our butts off all year long and you know, help make this country great, so let's celebrate those. And so, according to the U.S. Department of Labor, the holiday constitutes a yearly national tribute to the contributions workers have made to the strength, prosperity, and well-being of our country. In fact, on September 5th, 1882 was the very first Labor Day parade. You ever been to a Labor Day parade? I've been to a few. The very first one, listen to this one, this is astounding. In 1882, on that day, approximately 10,000 New Yorkers participated, and here's the crazy part. Each one took unpaid leave to support the event.
Wow.
That's how much they believed in it. For unions to get started, it took a lot of people to really believe in the idea of let's sacrifice a little something now so things could get better later on. And it wasn't difficult because there wasn't much to sacrifice. The late 1800s and most of the 1900s brought substantial industrial growth. Remember the Industrial Revolution? I mean, it's what changed the world, frankly. You started seeing factories pop up and rise up everywhere, and commerce gained foothold, and they began at an unprecedented level. And factories popped up everywhere. And what happened was most people up until that time were used to working in a rural setting on a farm. Usually that was the dream, was to get your own farm, and then you get your own farm. And tons of farms, little farms, just enough for you and your family everywhere. People left those small farms for the idea of working in a factory and the promise and hope of a better life and a more prosperous life. So all these people coming in, well, guess what that generated? That generated lots of workers, which meant that there was no more, the pay went low, because if you didn't want the job, 5 other guys were waiting to get your job. So because of that, employers could pay very low wages, and it turned into poverty. And if you've ever watched movies or watched History Channel about this, it was a very bleak time in our country, where people were doing crazy things to survive, things like killing rats to eat, for food. And this is what they had to do to make it through the day. Moms and dads and their kids all going to work. The kids, as soon as the kids were able to lift up a shovel and start scooping some coal, went to work to try to help the family with enough money to have a little bit of food, to be able to have the hope of 2 meals, and if they're lucky, 3 meals a day. And this is what it was like back then. And so that created a working class of poor families making barely enough to survive. So labor unions gave these people a voice and a hope for a better future. And if you know very much about a labor union, it's all in. If you want to be part of a union, you got to be all in. There's no halfway. You can't say, well, I'm going to check out the union. No, it's like, no, you're in or you're out. It's like La Familia, It's like, you're in the family or you're not in the family. No, I'm not. I'm just kidding. They don't really kill people that I know of. But it's a big deal that you have to be all in. They pay their dues. Like, each person contributes to keep the union dues going. It usually comes out of your paychecks, so it's deducted in those typical situations. You go to union meetings where they get together, they vote on things, they elect officials in their union to make the decisions, and the union represents you to make sure you get a fair or a great wage, is their hope, and great standards of living for you and your family. Now, unions have changed a lot over the years. And where they started off, back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, as a way for people to survive, and they did a lot of strikes and had to do a lot of crazy things to get the attention or to get a fair wage, but they got that. But unions have changed a lot over the years. And now, if you're like me, I grew up on a farm in a small town, and so when I would hear about unions or see or whatever, talk to my family or different people about unions, there was a general mindset that unions can be good, but it seemed like there was a lot of abuse. I don't know if you've ever seen that too, where people will be like, well, unions can be good, but man, there's people who take it way too far, and they want way too much, and because of that, and you hear the stories about union workers who will fall asleep. I think we've all heard the stories, especially with General Motors plants being nearby, of there was workers who would fall asleep on whatever place, and then they would wake up at the end of their shift, and that was that, And you hear this kind of stuff, or you hear about doing horrible things like growing, which at that time was still illegal, medicinal herbs and items in places of these plants, and apparently these stories have been confirmed. So there's a lot of crazy things that have happened. But just like anything else, there's good and bad in everything, and I think unions can have a lot of good things to offer, regardless of whether you've been in one or not been in one, or maybe you've had a bad experience in one, or you had a great experience in one. There's good things we can take from a situation. Now, I've got my own story. I was an electrician, and as an electrician, I was what you call a non-union electrician. Started off in the Owasso area, if that gives you any idea. And I thought it was great. When I got to the place where I became a journeyman electrician, I was at a place where I could make $12 an hour. And that was, like Rachel and I were just dancing and celebrating. $12 an hour, that was phenomenal. I mean, you gotta keep in mind that minimum wage then was like $4, if I recall right, just maybe $3.85, just gotten close to $4 maybe. And so that was a big deal to make $12 an hour. And I put my time in. But when you work non-union, if the employer decides they don't care for your work, don't need you anymore, they'll just let you go, and that's that. And to you, that's normal. It's like, yeah, I moved on to another employer, hoping to get enough work with this one, or maybe that one doesn't have very much work. There were some employers where they'd only give me 20 hours a week. That's all they had. So it's hard to support a family off that. And then I was working for one person in particular, and I met a gentleman that worked with me. He was a fellow journeyman. And one day he asked me, he said, so have you ever thought about unions, like going union, becoming a union electrician? And I'm like, I don't know anything about it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know anybody who's doing it, who's been in it. And I'm like, I wouldn't even know where to start, but I can only imagine. I mean, you probably pay tons of money in dues, and it's probably, you know, they own you or something. Maybe you have to take, you know, slit and do like a brother bond. I don't know what it is that you do with these unions, like your name's written in blood. I don't know. It's kind of scary. And so we laughed a bit and talked a bit, but this guy was, unbeknownst to me, already talking to a union company about becoming union. And through lots of conversations and so on, I went with him to a meeting one night to meet these people and to find out what it's all about. And after I got done with a meeting with those people, I realized, wow, they're just everyday guys like me. And girls, for that matter, too. At that time, there weren't many females in electrical work, believe it or not. But now there's many more. But at that time, it was still kind of a man's, whatever, I don't know, just a man's place where you almost always saw all guys, you know, a lot of jobs. But you began seeing that too. I thought, well, that's kind of cool. And these are really nice people. And I'm going to make how much? I mean, it was like dramatic, like double what I was used to making, which blew my mind that was even possible. Like, well, how do they make any money? How is that possible? And didn't understand all the economics involved in it, but it was intriguing. So I decided to go ahead and take that step. And I myself, I still can't believe I did this, but I stood out with a picket sign. It was part of what I had to do to get in. That was my initiation, was I had to stand with a picket sign at the road of one of the jobs that we were working and say, like, you know, something like unfair wages, I want to make more money, honk if you support it. People would honk as they went by. And that was what I did. And then after a while, the current employer eventually just said, no, we're not going to become a union company. And so the union held up their end of the bargain. It's okay, we're going to put you to work for a union employer. And they did. And I paid my dues, and it was like $1 an hour went for dues, but then I had benefits. All of a sudden I've got Blue Cross and Blue Shield, I've got retirement, money going to accounts which I have never dreamed of before that. So that's happening for me too. And we felt like, wow, oh my gosh, I feel like I've got a career ahead of me in the future, and I was very excited about the possibilities and got to work at a lot of amazing places, met a lot of amazing people. But then one day, I came across the seedy underbelly of some union life, and I found there were some guys that didn't want to work. There were guys who were just like, doing half the amount of work. Now, the foreman noticed. The foreman would say, oh, okay, Matt, here, you do that job, because I don't want to have him do it, because I know it'll take him all day, whereas you get it done. Will you do that? And, okay. They knew the workers that would work hard, the ones that didn't work hard. But it seemed like there was nothing done about it, which made me feel kind of like, well, wait, this isn't fair. How is it that one person can work really hard and one person doesn't work hard? And one day it all came to a head when we were working in a General Motors plant, the truck and bus plant, for those of you who may know about truck and bus plant, which I spent a lot of time in there. We were working there one day, and there was something going on off in the corner, because we had just had break time, which you got breaks too, that was really something new to me. So we got off break time, and everybody's going to work, and then a group of like the foreman, and then there was like one of the head honchos for the company was there too, which is very unusual. He usually only came to bring donuts once in a while, or if there was a problem. And so I thought, what's going on? And so naturally, we all watched. You can't help it. If there's something going on, we're supposed to be working, but everybody's looking like, what's going on over there? And sure enough, they pull open, there's manhole covers, we're on the second story, and a manhole cover is how they would get to a big machine operating that was maybe mounted to the ceiling. And one of those guys that I told you about didn't want to work was asleep. So, he went to sleep probably about 8 o'clock, and this is about 11 o'clock. Found him asleep underneath there. So they woke him up, which had to be a rude awakening for him. Got him up out of there, and there was no job he was supposed to do there. So he was literally there hiding so he could sleep. And then they found two other guys that were in cahoots with him. Basically, they opened it and let him get in there. They found out later they would take turns. Each one of them would get to sleep for a day. And so they were walked off the job, and that was it. Now, they're still part of the union, and they still could get jobs, but it's interesting how word gets up to the union employers, the guys that do that and the guys that don't do that, And they learn in time. So in other words, even though it seemed unfair in the moment to me, eventually, it caught up. And eventually, the ones who do the good job were the ones who were more steadily employed by the employers and so on. But like church, it can be a lot the same way. People can wonder about what's a church like. They can look from the outside in and think, what's the catch? Okay, sure, it sounds like all these great benefits. It sounds like all these great things if you become a church person. I'm a non-church person. Why would I want to do church? Like, what's the catch? Like, what's in it for me? And people look on the outside, look at it, and they wonder, are they weird? Like, do they do blood sacrifices? Do they expect you got to pay your dues? And if, are you left with any money left at the end of the month? And, do they bully you into things? And people wonder this looking from the outside in, like what this church stuff is all about. And you've got to understand that so you can talk to people with care and understanding. Because if we just assume everybody knows what we know, then we're going to find ourselves wrong a lot, and we're going to find ourselves with others looking at us with bewildered looks, not understanding a clue, because we don't understand what they think or their perceptions are of us. Now, if you're a non-union worker, let's just talk about some comparisons. It's basically you versus the boss. So if you want a raise, I hope your negotiation skills are good. Because it's up to you, and if you can really talk your way into it or whatever, you can talk them into giving you a raise if you're non-union. It's up to you. You're the negotiator. You're the one who's going to represent yourself if there's a conflict or disagreement. You're the one who's got to handle anything that comes up because you're your own free agent, so to speak. Now, you've got no dues to pay, so that means 100% of whatever you're making a check does go to you. But on the union side, there's a brotherhood. You've heard this term before, brotherhood. There's a brotherhood. There's people who have your back. It's like a family. If you have an illness, and I did see this, there's folks in the union that'll jump up and say, hey, we want to help you out. We heard this is going on. How can we help? They'll even see guys take collections on job sites. Here, everybody, come on, man, you can do it. Come on. They're really good at it. And they get money all collected to give away to people who have had an unfortunate circumstance. One of our brothers or one of our sisters in the brotherhood and the sisterhood who needs our help. So we're there for each other. You have better pay and benefits because now there's a group of people negotiating together as one. And it's more difficult to be treated unfairly because there's lawyers that are hired by the union corporation. So I could never afford a lawyer on my own. But because I'm part of a union now, there's a whole union corporation that hires lawyers who will look out for me. So I've got that at my disposal as well. It's like there's people behind you. You're not alone. You're not running something alone. You've got a collection of people behind you. And sure, we've heard the stories like I shared of there's abuse to that brotherhood. There's abuse to that advantage that you can have in that situation. But like church, there's advantages to being a part of a group of people, like-minded individuals who want to come together and have each other's support and have each other's back. Christianity is kind of like a team. You ever heard the together everyone achieves more? Team, T-E-A-M, together everyone achieves more? That's a big acronym? Is that what we call that acronym? Yeah. And there's no I in team, unless you look I think there's a foreign language where you can look up the word team. It does have an I in it, but for the most part, for those sticklers out there, for the most part, in the English language, there is no I in the word team because, it's all about all of us. We're all in this together. Watched High School Musical together with Michelle recently. Heard some songs. We're all in this together. We're on the same team. And like in church, there's something to that about having that collection together. But too often, maybe you're in this boat I'm about to talk about, too often, Christians get put off by other Christians who are fake or who are not genuine in their beliefs, who seem like they're only in that church for the benefits. They don't want to work that hard because they're just there for the benefits and for what they get out of it. And sometimes Christians can get upset at other Christians. They're not pulling their fair share. They're not lifting their part of the load. Or what are they doing? They're just, hanging out. Maybe you're jealous inside because you're thinking, man, I'm working hard. Why aren't they working hard too? And Christians getting sick of other Christians can often find ourselves withdrawing from our brotherhood or from our church because we don't want to be around those kind of people anymore. We find ourselves social distancing before that was even a term. Social distancing from other Christians, from other people in the church, and they become kind of on their own. And the danger of this is that over time, you forget the importance of being together. You forget the advantages that come with being a part of a team and part of a group of individuals who have your back. And you don't want to be the desperado. If you know the Eagles, they have the song Desperado. Desperado. I had this envisionment of how I was going to really break up the word desperado and just went to pieces. But the idea is that nobody wants to be a desperado. Like, no one sets out to be a desperado, to be the one, riding too long on your fences. You don't want to be that, but it happens because we get turned off by other people that bug us or bother us or get under our skin. If you think about it, a union, the idea of that brotherhood, band of brothers, it's kind of like the disciples of Jesus, the disciples who followed Jesus. Think about it in that terms, that you got someone who is standing alongside you, who has your back, who's there for you when you need it. And more importantly, this is harder to swallow, but we're not always right about everything. I'm sorry, some of you are here just to hear that today. You're not always right about everything that you say out loud. We go back a lot of times, if we're honest, and say, what was I thinking when I said that? And it's true. So we do need somebody in our life who we allow, and this is a big one, you have to allow that person to be able to speak into your life and say, hey, what you said, I'm not sure that's right on. What do you mean? You got to be able to, okay, sorry, what do you mean? You've got to be able to have that conversation and say, okay, is there something? And we need to have those people in our life. Now, Bertrand, Clio, Frankenmuth, people in this area need us. I was looking on the map, and I figured out that within it was only 12, within 12, circular miles of where we are right now. If you draw a circle on a map, 12 miles, go 12 miles out, and then make your circle. And I've talked about this before. There are 6,660 people who don't attend church on any kind of a regular basis. And I've talked about this before. When we did the research for starting this church, I get into the census, Bureau of Statistics and Information, and this is information that people give. One of the questions on that was, do you attend a church or religious organization? And people would either put yes or no on the census information. And based on the census for this area, there was 6,660 people who said, I don't. Not part of that. I don't identify with that group of people. So to me, that's 6,600 people who are looking for a place like this. A place where love is the main ingredient, because love is the missing ingredient that everybody needs. Everyone has a hole in their heart. They just don't, they'll use other words to describe it, like, my life is just so empty without meaning, or my life is missing something, or, I need to find a new man, that's what it is, or I need to get a new job, that's what it is, or, well, this car is so old, I'm going to get a new car. They look for lots of things to try to fill that empty spot in their life, because something feels like it's just missing. They need something more. But once you've found Jesus Christ, you realize that Jesus Christ is the only person, only thing that fills that empty spot in your heart, in your life. It's the only thing that fills that, because we've been created to have life with a creator. And when the created isn't in conjunction with the creator, it's groaning, it's not feeling right, something's out of place. And that's what creation is doing right now. It's yearning for its creator. We don't realize it, but that's what's happening. And so they need a place where there's no judgment. They've seen it too many times. They've seen the churches where if you're not wearing certain clothes, or if you don't look a certain way, or if you don't drive a certain vehicle, or if you don't arrive at a certain time, or they've got all of these stipulations or rules and guidelines of what it means to be part of their church or their organization, that if you don't fit that, then you feel out of place. You feel like, whoa, I don't even belong here. And people have felt that too much. They've called it judgment. They've called Christians hypocritical, judgmental. And they did that because, I hate to say it, but too often in the past, I believe that we as Christians have done that. Because we weren't thinking about it. We were unaware. But we need to be more aware of it. We are going to be the place where a person's first impression is everything. And if you've heard about this before, maybe, but people will decide in the first 10 minutes as to whether or not they're going to return to a church that they visit. Within the first 10 minutes, they have already made up in their minds, like, yep, coming back, or nope, not even coming back here again. And so that first impression is so important. And first impression is everything from the parking lot to coming into the doorway, that there's smiling, welcoming faces, and that it's clean and presentable, and there's clear direction of where they're supposed to go. When they come inside, there's not bad smells. It smells good, and there's not stuff on the floor. You've heard us talk about proprietary disposition. Proprietary disposition, which is meaning that you act like you're the proprietor. You act like you own the joint, right? Now in some churches they say, well, no. Only the pastor owns. No, not here. We're a co-op. We're a joint ownership of this place. We're all together. We're in this together, guys. And so when you have that disposition of, this is my place, if you see something on the floor, well, then you're going to pick up that thing off the floor. Or if you see something that seems out of place, you're going to offer to help with that. Hey, can I help with that? I want to make that right. And that's what you guys are at Silver Creek Church, and that's what we want to be continually moving forward. We want to appear friendly and open-minded to people that come in that don't even know anything about us, but if we appear friendly, if we appear open-minded in how we present ourselves to them, they're going to be more apt to listen to what we have to say. They're going to be more apt to go, okay, let's talk a little bit. It's very important. Now, there's another term I use a lot of times to describe a church environment, or even, frankly, this describes more of relationship environments. Like, we talk about small groups sometimes, and the importance of having small groups. It's been described this way. There's in every home, most every home, you'll have a foyer, a living room, and a kitchen. And the foyer can be just as much as a front door. You've at least got a front door. In every home, to pass the code of what makes a home, you've got to have a front door and a back door. And you'll have a living room that sometimes will be combined. If it's a one-room apartment, it'll be combined with the kitchen, but it's there. It's with the kitchen, but the idea is you've got living room, kitchen, and a front door or foyer. And everyone that has never been to your home before is typically going to go to which door? The front door, right? Because you've never been there before. It's like, well, I don't know. Do they use the garage door or not? I don't even know where that door go. Could be creepy and scary. Let's go to the front door. So you go to the front door and you'll knock, push the doorbell button, whichever case it is. Often there's a welcome mat. It's usually very attractive. Tammy's really good at this. She makes sure that you guys know, don't you? Every season or holiday, man, there's like themes. Sometimes just to get ideas, you should go look at Tammy's house. She's got it's like Better Homes and Gardens. You do such a great job of that. But you walk up to the front door, and it's like, boom, there it is. It's been decorated, or it's the nicest place typically in your home. And then when people come to the front door, the people that come there means you probably don't know them very well, or they're just getting to know you, or it's a pizza man, delivery person, whatever, but it's people that you're not sure of. And even at times, we'll open the front door and, hello, basically, who are you, and is it safe to open this door? So we're checking each other out, but everyone's always in their best behavior, right? When someone first comes to your home, you're going to make sure that you're presented well, stuff is picked up off the floor. How many of you, kids always know this. It's like, my kids can always say to us, who's coming over tonight? Because it's like, no, pick that up, clean that up, clean that up. We're making extra sure that everything's picked up and cleaned up. And so somebody must be coming. And so make sure your front door is presentable, and that's the place where you welcome someone for the first time. You're sensitive to how it looks, and you make sure that it's giving the best first impression of you. Then you'll move people typically into the living room. The living room is for getting to know people more. The living room is that place where you get to know, you talk. It's designed to be comfortable. It's designed to be comfortable seating where you can just kind of chill and be with somebody. It's a comfortable yet clean atmosphere. It's usually an attractive space. You'll usually have some pictures or wall hangings where they can see your family or understand what's important to you. And you create an inviting and relaxed atmosphere. Friendships are made here. Laughing happens in the living room. Crying sometimes happens in the living room. But relationships typically go deeper in a living room. Then the last place is the kitchen. People don't typically get invited to the kitchen until you've really gotten to be good friends, or you've really gotten to know them well. Because the kitchen is usually not as picked up. Unless you're at Tam, I'm sorry, Tam, but unless you're at Tam's house. She's the one today that gets picked up. But because it's nice. But no, the kitchen is typically not picked up. The kitchen is usually the place where if you've had guests over, then that's where all the pots and pans and everything's kind of strewn about because you made sure the dining room was presentable, you got the food out there. But the kitchen is the place where you can let your hair down. The kitchen is the place where you're yourself. If you have a group of friends and you're all sitting in the kitchen together, that means they must be really close. They must be like family to you. And that's where you really get into the deeper conversations. That's where it's not just, talking about light things, but you'll really talk about things that are really important to you. And only the people that we trust get invited to the kitchen. And the reason why I brought this up is because when it comes to relationships and people, and even with our church, we have to look at what environment are people going to be most comfortable in. And that environment, the common denominators are the ones that we prepare for them to be the most comfortable in. In other words, we can neglect a room to the point that it's so uncomfortable for a person that they don't even want to be there. Have you ever been there? Have you ever gone into a home? Don't raise your hands or point fingers. Or have you ever been to a place where you're just like, I don't even think I want to be here. I just want to get out because it's not picked up. It's dirty. I check my pants when I stand up. Have you been in that situation where it's not comfortable? You just want to go, or maybe there's a smell and they don't realize it. It's like, I think Poodle made a poo-poo somewhere. I don't know. But you just like, something is amiss here, and I'm not comfortable. I'm not liking the situation. But that, as believers of Jesus Christ, we want to create environments, atmospheres that's inviting for people to come in, that people will want to stay. And so we have to pay attention to the little things. We have to pay attention to how things look, how it feels, how people treat each other. It's very, very important. And what we say. There's things that we'll say to someone once they've gotten to the place of our kitchen that I would never say to that person the first time I met them at the front door. Is that logical? Like, I'm not going to get into a really deep philosophical conversation at the front door with someone who I just met. I'm just not that kind of person. But over time you will. And just like that, when people first come to our church, our Sunday morning is really our foyer and our living room. It's kind of a combined deal, but it's not the kitchen. There's sometimes that we'll get into some deeper subjects, but really I count on our small groups to be that place where we can really get into those conversational subjects. This environment, we're talking to an audience typically that's full of people who are looking for a church home, who are here for the first time, or here for just a couple of times and are saying, I'm still checking this out. I'm not sure I want to come back yet, but I'm liking what I see so far, so I'm here. Keep talking to me. And so we're creating that environment that's welcoming, inviting for them. And so if you ever find yourself in a place where you've been coming to church for a long time and you're thinking, man, it just seems like all we're doing is talking to people who are here for the first time and I want to go deep, you need to understand something. This isn't the place. The kitchen, the small groups, that's the place to go really deep in our faith. And that's why we're taking a season, we're taking a time right now where we're taking every other Sunday to go into some deep topics, to go into some deep study for this team right here. We will not always do this as a church. We're just doing it for this season right now. But in the future, we'll change that where those kinds of small groups will be happening on off times, at different times, other than like the service for a Sunday morning. Because it's so important. We grow the most in a small group environment. We grow the most with people in their kitchen environment. We're never going to grow deep with a person if we stay at the front door. If all they ever see is that as a front door, that's all we ever stay, we're never going to go deeper. We've got to come into the living room. And then from the living room, we've got to be invited into the kitchen. And that's up to us to invite people into our small groups, into our groups where we can grow and become into a deeper relationship. But that's not until we've gotten to a place where there's trust, where that trust is established, and we get there later on. Now, Jesus talks a little bit about this, so we're going to look into some scriptures now. In John chapter 15, this whole idea of being halfway in or all in, that's what we're going to look at. What does Jesus talk about? And so John chapter 15, verse 8, here's what Jesus said. When you become fruitful disciples of mine, my Father will be honored. So we become fruitful. Now, why does it say fruitful? I don't know about you. It seems fruity, right? What's fruit? Now, if you grew up in my generation, fruity was a term we gave for a person who was a little bit weird, eccentric, oddball, strange, bizarre. They're a little fruity, right? That's what we would term. But that hasn't been something you've probably heard a lot of you guys looking like, huh? So, so that's not the term. But fruitful, in this term, because Jesus is talking to an audience where everybody had a fruit tree in their backyard. Everybody walked up to a fruit tree quite often to get something to eat for that day's meal. Everybody walked up to a vine to pick something to make a drink. Everybody had walked over and picked something out of the ground. So these people understood 100% that fruitful means that plant is producing something that's good. And if a plant doesn't produce something, what good is an apple tree that doesn't produce apples? I'm one of these people that I find decorative trees a little bit silly. I think, well, make it a fruit tree. At least we'll get apples off of it. How cool would that be? We were at Outdoor Adventure. You ever heard of Outdoor Adventure? It's in Davidson. It's like a campground thing for people who own memberships. My wife's father owns membership there. We were out there, we're playing putt-putt golf, and there's an apple tree in the middle of the putt-putt golf course. I thought, brilliant! Because not only is it decorative and pretty, but you can eat off of it too. Once a year between a certain number of weeks. But if you're there at the right time, you'll have apples that you get off. I thought, what a cool idea to have that. But fruit, Jesus made reference to this before, and if you read the scriptures, you'll see where he cursed the tree because it was not producing any kind of fruit. And that was a common belief in those times was, what good is the plant if it doesn't give you something to eat? It's useless, it's worthless. And so what Jesus is saying is that when you become fruitful disciples of mine, in other words, when you're producing fruit, which is another way to say that you're doing something, you're doing something that's allowing other people to find out more about Jesus Christ, and other people are growing to know Jesus Christ more. It'll disappear if you're not fruitful, so thank you. Fruitful disciples, my Father will be honored. And so he's telling us, okay, his Father will be honored. Now, interesting, if you jump ahead to verse 11 and 12, here's what Jesus, so we just skipped some verses on purpose, but here's what Jesus said. I have told you this to make you as completely happy as I am. Completely happy as I am. So in other words, he's saying that when you're fruitful, you're going to be happy. Or if you come from my generation, if you're fruity, you'll be happy, which is another funny thing to say. But if you're fruitful, you'll be happy is what he's saying. As I am, which, hey man, to be as happy as Jesus, that's a pretty high mark. Now I tell you to love each other as I have loved you. He keeps coming back to this. And if you've come to our church for a while and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like Jesus is always saying to love other people as much as I've loved you. Yeah, he is. I looked it up. I wanted to find out how many times does Jesus address this. And so I looked in the New Testament only. I looked to find out how many times there's a reference made to loving others with Jesus. And I got to 29 and I stopped because I realized it was everywhere. It's like riddled through it. So there's way more than 29. Someday I'll take more time and research it out and tell you the exact number. But it's way more than 29, which is a lot if you think about it. If you think about it, that's a lot of times that this subject keeps coming up. Because if the historians who are writing what a person talked about and said, and the theme comes up more than 29 times, it tells you that, man, they must have heard it a lot. It means it was something that Jesus wanted to keep reminding us over and over. He wanted to get it through our heads because it's really super important. In fact, if we jump to verse 17, so I have commanded you to love each other. One last time, again, that same reference, it's like Jesus is talking, and then he comes back and says, by the way, in case you were not paying attention, remember I said they probably repeated his word. Yes, Jesus, love one another. I mean, Jesus is talking about it so much. But it's what he wanted us to get through our heads, because loving other people is the difference between this belief, religion, church, than all the other churches of beliefs and religions. That's what sets it apart. That's what makes it different. It's not something like a union that you join and pay dues, and as long as you do what you're supposed to do, there'll be 100 virgins waiting for you when you die, or there's going to be golds and riches for you in an afterlife, and that's all you're doing it for. This one's saying it very clearly. It's saying, give up your life for other people. That's what sets this one apart. It's not promising us a life of grandeur and pleasantries. This life of being a Jesus follower means I will give up my life for someone else on a daily basis. I will live a little less high in the hog so other people can have something, because I'm a follower of Jesus, because that's what Jesus taught me to do. It's a life of sacrifice for others. And yes, there's eternal life in it. That's the benefits. But that's not the focus. Jesus made it really clear over and over about how we love other people. Now, I can't have this message talk about this without talking a little bit about the coronavirus. Because here we are, we're in 2020, and it's all around us. You can't get away from it. It's what this world is in the middle of right now. And if you think back to March, I was thinking about this. So you think back to March, that was when the world stopped, right? March is when everybody's like, what is going on? What is this coronavirus? They're trying to explain it, understand it. So there was a lot of unknowns that we're just trying to figure out. And because we care about other people, because we care about our loved ones, our elderly loved ones, all of us were willing to say, hey, we'll do what it takes. Stay home, whatever it takes, and I'm very proud of the world because we did just that. Everyone, without having to have military police forces to force us to do it, we all sort of took a strategic retreat in our homes. And I was good at it. I was like all CSI guys, because I've learned a lot from my wife. So I could go to a gas pump and not a single germ or virus thingy was touching me or my car. I had a system where I put my gloves on, touch the pump, touch the thingy, and then throw them away, get the pump stuff put back without ever touching my finger. Even the credit card, I was able to get that in the machine without touching nothing. And push the buttons, I had like I put a glove on one hand without a glove, so I could, this is clean, this is not clean. I had it all down pat. And so I got back in my vehicle, my state of mind was like, woo, ain't nothing touching me, man. And so I get in my car, start it up, and I'm heading out, and I'm looking around everybody else going, hope it works out for you, because I know I'm all right. And I was like, good. I was good at it. I made sure my kids stayed home, didn't go nowhere. My wife was on the front lines. That's the crazy part of it. My wife was in what I consider ground zero, like a micro world environment of what we saw going around us was happening where she worked, because she still works in a assisted living home where they care for people of all ages, mostly elderly residents, but someone of any age could go in there. If you need to get some rehabilitation, you need a place where there's someone who can watch you 24 hours a day and monitor, as you recover from something. That's the kind of place that you'll end up going. And if you've ever had a kind of a surgery that required that, some of you probably have experienced that before. That's a place where you go. And so that's a pretty good microcosm, so to speak, of the world in that environment, because it's got all ages, but a lot of elderly people. And so watching it, we're in March, and Rachel's like, we're at zero, nothing's hitting us, nothing's affected us. They're taking everything very seriously, but it's going really good. And we thought, wow, this is awesome. And how cool is that? Then it hits. And to this day, they don't know how it hit. The idea is, how did it get in? Well, obviously it got in through one of the workers, because they weren't allowing family or friends to come into these, you remember this, coming into the homes. They were shut down, man. Only workers were allowed to go in and out. And they even talked about the idea of keeping them there overnight. And that was not a fun thought for us as a family. But Rachel's in there, and here's what happened. In 3 weeks, they lost 38 patients to complications resulting from the coronavirus. Now you got to understand, with a virus, whether it be coronavirus or any other virus, the virus itself isn't what necessarily kills you. It's other things happening to your body that get weakened by this thing attacking your immune system and weakening the body down to a point that it's just like you're susceptible to whatever comes, which are always around us, but our bodies are always fighting off things every day. And so we don't even realize it. It's like, every day your body's winning, like Rocky, your body's winning and you don't even realize it. But in this situation, Rocky's knocked down for the count. Mr. T's come up and he's looking at you and like, good people. And so here it comes, So that's what's happening in this situation. Is you got to understand that Rocky's gonna face some tough stuff. So so they lost 38 patients out of 125. That's how many they lost in 3 weeks. And during a normal 12-month calendar year, I asked Rachel, how many folks do you lose to like the flu virus or other viruses that resulted in death through complications, which is almost how people almost always pass away, frankly, in those situations, almost. And she said 2 to 3 patients for 12 months. And 38 happened in 3 weeks, guys. So you understand that this is a real deal. It's not like, this isn't something made up. This isn't a government conspiracy that was just all made up thing. And it's not. No, it really happened. My wife observed it. She came home crying every day and lived through it. So you can look at a real person, not just news stories or YouTube stories or whatever else. Here's a person telling you what happened. So that happened. And it was scary. And it made us wonder, what's going to happen to all of us? And all of us have similar stories. I have a friend who lost a grandfather to this, and other friends I know of who lost loved ones, parents. And it's a horrible thing to lose a loved one. And during this time, everybody's wondering, what do we do? What do we do? And I have to tell you, and this is a thought that went through my head, but I thought to myself, okay, if my neighbor, this is while we're all during lockdown, and my wife's going through these horrible deaths, at that point, the death count was maybe up to 12. We're wondering, how is it? So this is in the beginning part. It's like, wow. But I said to myself, what would I do if I found out that my neighbor needed help across the street? Like, in other words, like maybe he's staggering out to the mailbox and he falls. And what do I do? Because I'm not supposed to come in contact with other people to protect my loved ones in that. But what do I do? Or what do I do if someone calls me as the pastor and says, will you please come to the hospital and pray for me because my loved one's got coronavirus and they're about to die. Will you please come pray? What am I going to do? What do I do? What do I do? Because I care for my loved ones. And I came to the conclusion that I'll go. I came to the conclusion that I would go. And it wasn't an easy decision because it means I'm putting my life at risk. But it's a decision that I came to, and I was never in a position where I had to save someone's life, I'm thankful to say, and no one with our immediate family was in a position that required me coming to the hospital and praying for you. I prayed for a lot of people over the phone for other things and for possibilities and so on, but that never happened. And like a lot of you, maybe you wanted the same thing, like, what do we do for somebody in that situation? I'm not an elected official. You're not an elected official. Not that I know of in this room. If we are, let me know. But not that I know of. But so what do we do? Like we're not the one who has the power. Like I asked Joey one day, I said, Joey, somebody who works in the school system, who do I communicate with about, I want to voice my opinion about the schools and whether they go back or don't go back, whatever. And Joey said, can I paraphrase what he said? He said, good luck. Because there is no exact person who's going to stand up and say, I'm the one you can come to. No one is going to put their hand up for that. Everyone's probably going to defer you to someone else and say, well, no, it's their call or their call. It turns into a mess trying to figure out, who do I talk to? Who can I get their attention of? So as a Jesus follower, who do we turn to? Well, obviously we turn to Jesus Christ, right? We know that's an obvious answer for everything. But the number one thing for us is love. That's what it comes down to, is what does love require of me? That's a great question that we'd love to ask in every life situation, but in this especially. What does love require of me? And here's what I've concluded for myself. And you guys maybe think about this for yourselves as I tell you what I'm feeling like. But I'll take my mask off for you if you're lying on the ground and something's happened and you need my help. I'll get my face right up into your face and I'll breathe life into your body if I need to. I will do that for you. Even though I know it could put me in great risk, I'm willing to do that for you. But it's scary. It's not, believe me, don't think that I'm not thinking about it, thinking twice, like, oh, is this the right thing to do right now? Because of this situation that we live in the world where what do you do with these viruses that are going around and stuff like that? But I'm not going to run away. If I see a situation where someone's in need, I'm not going to stand still and wonder, uh-oh, is someone else going to help? I'll be the one to go to you. I'll be the one to help. I'll run to the situation, as many heroes often do. They run to danger instead of running away. So here's the question. How can anyone claim to love others and ignore them lying on a sidewalk because they could possibly have a virus? And that's where we stand as believers, as Jesus followers. It means that we are responsible, we are caring for other people, but we're also willing to put our own life on the line to help someone else, even if it means that it could bring harm to us. Let's look at the Good Samaritan. You've heard this story, I'm sure, before, and it's pertinent. So let's look here. I've got it for us up on the screen. And this is Jesus telling the parable of the Good Samaritan. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by some robbers. We've heard this story before. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. Now, understand something. In this pass where they were talking about, that goes from Jerusalem to Jericho, that was a famous pass in those times for being like a dark alley in a dark street in a very horrible place in town, right? I mean, it was known as, if something bad's going to happen, it's going to happen on that pass from Jerusalem to Jericho. It was a well-known thing. So people who took that path, who took that journey, were like, okay, I'm taking my life in my own hands. They traveled in groups, typically not alone, because there's safety in numbers, right? So understand that this happening was not unusual. It was a common thing to come across a person who was either beat up or in the process of being beat up. All right, and here's what happens next. A priest happened to be going down the same road when he saw the man. He walked by on the other side. Now you might think at first, well, how can the priest do that? How can he just walk by? That was the normal thing to do.
That was normal, because if you stopped, sometimes criminals would have themselves disguised to look injured and hurt, but they really weren't. And so when you came to help, aha! They popped out, and there was their buddies, they jumped you, and they got you. It was a trick, it was a ruse, just to get you to stop, to play on your compassion a little bit. So it was normal, it was like street smarts to just keep on walking. We've heard this about cities like New York City. It's like, yeah, people always keep walking. But that's what people did in the time. So it was not unusual for the priest. In fact, people probably advised the priest, keep walking, don't stop. Later, a temple helper came to the same place, which is a person who worked in a temple. But when he saw the man who had been beaten up, he also went by on the other side. So, in other words, this is setting up a story. Jesus is telling us that lots of people are walking past this guy. A man from Samaria then came traveling along that road. When he saw the man, he felt sorry for him, or he felt compassion. There was something inside him that couldn't let him keep walking. Something inside him drove him to a place that he's like, I gotta stop. Even though I know there could be somebody ready to jump out and attack me. He could be faking it, but I've gotta stop, I've gotta help, I just can't walk past. Something inside him said, I can't walk past. He went over to him, he treated his wounds with olive oil and wine, which was a common treatment for people who were not feeling well, and bandaged them. Then he put him on his own donkey, which means he wasn't just enough just to fix him up and then, okay, quick, I'm getting out of here. Because any moment, you can picture, it's probably like this. What was that noise? Was that, what? Ralph, is that you? You know, you're freaking out at every little twig snap, every little noise while he's doing this. You gotta understand, because at any moment, it's well known you don't stop here. But he did. He puts him on his donkey, which took more time, which means he put himself into more danger. Then he took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next morning, he goes a step further and says to the innkeeper, he gave the innkeeper 2 silver coins and said, please take care of the man. And if you spend more than this on him, I will pay you when I return. End of story. So then Jesus asked, which of these 3 people was the real neighbor to the man who was beaten up by the robbers? Because remember, it was normal to walk past. And the teacher in the crowd, which is the person who initially asked this question of Jesus, it wasn't Jesus in this case, the teacher answered, the one who showed pity. And Jesus said, go and do the same. Go and do the same. That's what he's saying to us today. Are we just Jesus followers when it's easy? Are we just Jesus followers when it's convenient for us because, well, it's not costing me anything right now, it's not a problem for me right now in this situation? Or are we Jesus followers even when it might cost us something to do it? You see, we do meet together as a church. We're a union of brothers and sisters because we have come together in a common cause for loving other people. That's what brought us together. That's why we have this thing called church. And we care enough that we will place our life at risk for other people. We care enough for them that we will place our life at risk for them. So here's the question. Are you willing to place your life at risk for someone else? That's the question. It's okay, that phone can just stop for right now. Don't even sweat that. But here's the question I want to ask you. Are you willing to place your life at risk for someone else? I want you to tune in here. I see you right there. Are you willing to put your life at risk for someone else? Is it worth it? Because you got to weigh it up. I mean, what could happen to you in the process? What could happen to us if we're going to step out of our comfort zone and help somebody? Whether it's just like I feel a lot of anxiety about the idea of even like walking up to someone and talking to them, or geesh, I don't know if I'm ready for this right now. But the question is it worth it? Is someone else's life worth you risking your own or your child's life? Because people are going to die in the next 3 months, in the next 10 minutes, in the next 2 hours. People are going to die, and the question is it worth our time to do whatever it takes to reach them in this time that we live in right now? It's a scary time, don't get me wrong. We need to be cautious, don't get me wrong. But I'm just asking the question that I've been asking myself a lot, is what are we going to do about it? Labor Day is a holiday where we enjoy relaxing and friendships and getting together with people that we love ones and having fun. We celebrate the working man, the working woman, or our contributions to society and how we've made a better life for everyone through our sweat and through our labor. So we call it Labor Day, we celebrate. But maybe after today we'll think about Labor Day in a different way. Maybe after what we talked about today, we'll think about it in terms of, as Jesus followers, we've accomplished a lot. I mean, look back at what's happened over the last couple thousand years. It's amazing what's happened as Jesus followers, what we've accomplished. From just a few disciples to look at today and how many churches there are all over the world meeting on Sunday morning, talking about Jesus Christ, the way, the truth, and the life. So we should be proud of what we've accomplished. But we also have to ask the questions, what is yet to be done? There's so much left still to do. So the question is it worth it to give up my life? To possibly be in the position where I could give up my life to save someone else's? Because Rachel and I had this talk. When she was in the middle of this, and there was people dying every single day, and she's coming home to me in tears, and I'm trying to comfort her as best I can, because when you're around death every day, it takes a toll on you in unspeakable ways. And I looked at her and I said, is it worth it? In other words, I was ready to say, I don't care what it costs us, you can quit right now. As her husband, I was like, I don't want you in that dangerous place. You quit right now. And she looked at me, and she didn't say a word, but I already knew what she was thinking. And I said, you can't quit, can you? She said, no, I can't. She said, it's my calling. I'm not there for myself, I'm there for others. And I was just like, that's exactly right, Rachel. That's exactly why we do what we do. It's for other people because they are worth it. So, because someone else gave their life for me, because Jesus Christ gave up his life for you, I think it's worth it for us to consider giving up our life for others. So today, let's consider that. Other people are worth it. So what can we do in this time, right now? Coronavirus is all around us, but still, what can we do to reach others, to show that love that Jesus has for others? Because his love is enduring, and it's going on right now. There's people who need him right now. There are suicide rates among teenagers that are highest levels in a very long time right now. Social, not distancing, but social, what's the word I'm trying to find for, but basically a lot of our young people are in a place where they're alone. I mean, yeah, families around, but they don't have their typical network of friends or counselors or even teachers to talk to at schools, and that takes a lot of stress on a person. So there's people who need us right now. There's people all around us who need us. And I don't think anyone else is going to step up to the plate on this. I don't think our governments, our government agencies, school systems are going to jump up to the plate and say, here's some answers for this. It's up to us. It's up to us to say, what can we do in this time to be the light of the world, to be the light of Jesus Christ to others in our communities? Because it's worth it. And someone gave up their life for us. So I think it's worth it for us to be willing to give up our life for others. Let's bow our heads and pray. Lord Jesus, we need you. There is nothing else that is going to fill this empty place in our hearts except you. Will you help us to have the courage? Will you help us to have the endurance, the conviction to be able to stand up in a time where everything within us says we should just sit down, but to tell us to stand up and to be there for others, to be a light when we feel tired, when we feel worn down, to find that energy to stand up and to be there for others, to be that positive influence in other people's lives, to just ask the question, can I help you? To ask the question, how are you doing? To ask the question, is there something I can do for you? Help us to be that in the world that needs it so much right now today, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, so that concludes our message for today. In a few minutes, we're going to have a 3-minute break. We're going to get to the music portion of our service. And we look forward to joining you in just 3 minutes right now, back here. Thank you.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like tear down, coming after me. Oh no, no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Love the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found. He is the 99, and I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. You know the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Coming after me. I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until